Alrighty, welcome into BP Insights. So yeah, I know there's a lot of just straight up BS articles on the internet, but here's one that I found fascinating from New Scientist, whatever the fuck website this is. Food addiction should be treated like drug abuse, claims doctors. So what's interesting about this is, I say interesting, there's a lot more people that are saying they're connecting ultra processed food addiction, junk food addiction, with like drug abuse. Because like I said on a TikTok, if you guys follow me on TikTok, an obese person really is a junk food addict. If you're being completely honest, like how many obese people do you know? How many of them do you see eat fruits, vegetables, good quality meats day in and day out? There's at least one McDonald's one where there's at least one Taco Bell run. There's some Skittles. There's some M&Ms in there. So yeah, Joe Rogan made an interesting point. I forget who he was talking to. It's like, a food addiction is kind of weird because with like as compared to a drug addiction, like say you're a heroin addict, like heroin is not essential to living. But in the case of a food addiction, eating food is essential to living. So if you are a food addict, you have essentially a problem, but also it's a problem with something that is essential. So it's kind of interesting. So food addiction, junk food addiction is kind of interesting when you think about it. So yeah, this just talks about, it's one of those things you got to subscribe. But yeah, the headline really says it all here. If you look at this, food addiction should be treated like drug abuse. Headline really says it all. There's just a lot. Look, even CNN, more liberal articles, New York Post. Okay, here's the New York Post. I'm a dietitian. Some processed foods are healthy for you. So, honestly, that's just... I say clickbait. Of course, I click on it. But it's just so comical. There's going to be one of these extreme left-wing agendas trying to make the case for how some processed foods are healthy for you. In what world are processed foods healthy for you? I don't get it. So I'm not going to read through that, but what's interesting is like technically I think you have to really get used to using like when you're describing processed food, you have to say ultra processed food and then processed food. You have to differentiate between the two. So processed food actually can technically be is like cooking a steak. So technically processed food can be healthy if you're using, like if you're comparing the two, if you really want to get down to the strict terminology, ultra processed food is what's unhealthy. Processed food can be healthy, like cooking a steak or like cooking chicken or like cooking shrimp, and then like cutting a steak before you eat it or chopping up vegetables. That's technically mechanical processing. So then in that case, so if you want to say, if you're claiming processed foods are healthy, yeah, processed in that simplest terms is healthy. But when you're trying to truly differentiate between the two, ultra processed food is what's really unhealthy. But yeah, I just don't get like why. Like I kind of like use the comparison, like you wouldn't eat rat poisoning, right? But you look at some of you look at some of these some of the stuff is just like the additives they have are just like you can't even pronounce some of these terms, and people wonder why, like how when they switch to a carnivore diet, they wonder why they're feeling so much better. It's just because like even if they didn't even have all these huge health problems that forced them to a carnivore ketogenic, you're just like, yeah, you're just like, you're not. It's like I was telling people I know, it's like, why is like carnivore diet and ketogenic diet, like a lot of people have hard time fathoming why it's so key. It's just because you got to think like the body just like, okay, like why does water, like why do we crave water? Because just water is like what the body needs to fuel up. Like meat has always been, like meat just occurs in nature. Like you're eating another animal, an animal that was, born and raised in nature. When you eat a product that's like laxaphosphate, Like what? Like think about like that. That's something that's just like been. That's like it's a additive that's been created in a lab. It's like of course the body doesn't know what to do with that. Like people have been eating vegetables, fruit, and meat, stuff that fruit's grown in the ground, vegetables grown. Like the body knows how to digest that. The body likes that type of fuel. The body doesn't like Lay's potato chips. Like the body's like, what is all this extra crap? Like I have to try to digest all of that. So yeah, I just don't. That's just crazy how like the norm can shift. Like think about like if you were like I don't even like it just shows that like people are how you can really prove people are junk food addicts is just like I think a lot of people deep down know that like when you down a couple of Cinnabons, you're going to feel off afterwards. But people continue to do it. It's just kind of crazy. Like, how can you know? Or it's kind of just, it's crazy just like you hear, like, you see everyone else doing it. You see commercials for junk food all the time. You see all this stuff all in all these, you see it in the grocery stores, the gas station when you walk in. So you just, even though it feels good, I think the fact that it's so readily available and it's everywhere that you just assume it can't possibly be that bad if it's still being sold in stores, if all my friends are eating it, if my family for dessert always has Cinnabons. So yeah. I mean, you look at all these health issues with some of these young kids, it's just kind of crazy. Kids with fatty liver disease, all these pre-diabetic kids, it's just kind of crazy. Yeah. Obesity statistics, I mean, it's kind of crazy. Yeah, it's getting out of control. People don't want to weigh themselves at the doctor. That's another issue. Just kind of insane. Just insanity. Some states is higher than 35, like Texas, Louisiana, like some of the southern states is higher than 35%. But yeah, I think one of the biggest issues is people just don't know when to shut. Like that's a problem with some of these ultra processed foods is like they don't, since it's not something natural that goes in the body. Like there's not that stomach brain connection that tells you when you're satisfied and to stop eating. I think with these junk foods, they're so addictive and just that the brain's not used to eating them. There is not that natural connection that where your brain tells you, okay, that's enough to be full. So then you keep eating them. You have that rush of dopamine and that overwhelming, flavor from whatever junk food. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's an issue. Like you look at like food, like gatherings or such. There's just like a lot of things just revolve around eating junk food. Like you look at how many, like look at television commercials are almost all like commercials for or Taco Bell. Like, and you hear like people that are in band, like I remember this commercial, there's people in bands and they talk about how like Taco Bell was like the perfect meal because it was cheap. That's another issue. Like there's so many, like a lot of people in poverty, they can only really afford junk food. And then people allow, the government allows people to buy soft drinks with their food stamps, which is another issue. Should not be allowed to buy food stamps. Honestly, what the government should do, people in poverty, they should pay for them to buy good, healthy, quality meats and get them a gym membership. Honestly, I know I've hammered this point before on TikTok, but think about how many problems in the world would be solved if they just allowed people to, if they gave people money for a gym membership and then money to get good quality steak, good quality meats, fruits, and vegetables. Think about how many problems that would solve. You could really extrapolate this out to, that would solve, people would feel better. Like when you feel better, like think about, like if you're someone that like people that are committing crimes, like if they had access to good quality meats, fruits, vegetables, and had a gym membership, wouldn't you think the chance of them committing a crime would be a lot less likely? Like you look at there's just like a higher crime rates in lower income areas. Don't you think though? Don't you think just like if those people had access, like don't you think healthy food and a gym membership, don't you think if those two things were provided, don't you think that would have to bring crime rate down? I don't know. Maybe not, but who knows? It's just like, I remember I was watching a documentary about this school. It's like the school where with troubled kids. I forget what it's called, what those schools are called. It was a school where some of these kids had problems, and they went and their lunch was all like good quality meats, fruits, vegetables, and the kids started not having any behavior issues. Like think about that. Like that's crazy. Like these were all kids that were put in this school because they were having behavior issues at one school. Go to the school. This school is serving fresh fruits, vegetables, just a good quality lunch, and these kids are not having any behavior issues. It's just kind of like, I don't like, honestly, once you kind of, I guess in fairness to me, once you kind of go down this rabbit, like once you find something that's really working for you, you kind of just think that like if everyone does it, it's going to pay huge dividends in the world. Like for example, if you're a person who's just like swears by running 5 miles every day, then you just be like, everyone must run 5 miles. That releases stress, getting in shape, everything good that comes from running 5 miles. Like everyone should be running 5 miles. I think with me is, since I've really reaped the benefits of carnivore diet for over a year now, I think to me, that's why I'm really pushing that everyone should do it. Like I hear all the success stories, all the people that have lost all this weight, the people that have had all these chronic conditions and gotten rid of those, people that are having seizures that are done with that, people that were on insulin for diabetes. I think like that's why I'm thinking, like I see people that are unhealthy. I'm like, maybe carnivore diet could save their life. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's what they're missing. Like, not to be like, I think that's when you kind of sound crazy, is when you find one thing and you just think that like it's like a must for everything to do. Kind of like I just compared running 5 miles every day. But like, honestly, you think about that, like what goes back to the government, like if the government, not even just for low income people, what if as much crap this government spends money on, what if the government just provided people with money for good quality, for ketogenic or carnivore diet, the two diets that are really changing people's lives the most, and at least in my opinion, I think a lot of people would agree. So people were supplied food for meat, fruits, vegetables, nuts, cheese, all the stuff for carnivore, ketogenic diet. People were supplied money for that, and they were given money for a gym membership. I think about if everyone had access to that. Think about how much of a change that could potentially make in the United States. I don't know if this is true, but I thought I heard from someone that Denmark does something similar to that. I don't know if that's 100% true, but it's really interesting. But yeah, and then I think what could be really cool is if, say people that were low income already, maybe they had enough money to eat that food, or they had enough money for a gym membership. Maybe they could get that money for something else that they truly need. Maybe some clothes that they need, like some jackets. So honestly, if the government, just could do like, almost like maybe like gift cards. I know that sounds kind of corny, but just like a gift card that's good at at local gyms, and then a gift card that's good for, Myers or Walmart or, local butcher shop, and you can just buy just the highest quality meats, fruits, and vegetables. I don't know. I don't know, but I really think that would solve a lot of issues. And then, yeah, drugs, alcohol, porn. Drugs, alcohol, porn, just really sad. I think that's what's really cool about a lot of people. You talk about more benefits of carnivore diet. A lot of people have really put drug addiction, alcohol addiction, porn addiction to the side once they've really, once they've kept going, once they've been going on a carnivore diet. I think, which is really cool. Yeah, drugs are a huge issue. Drug addiction, just bad news. Heroin, meth, the fentanyl epidemic, serious epidemic. But yeah, I think that's something to just, over time. Like one day it just finally clicked with me on carnivore diet. Like I did carnivore diet. I've technically say I've done it for 2 years, but I would mix in some cheat meals. And then over time, I just decided not to do any cheat meals. Over time, I just decided not to drink alcohol. I've been sober for a year now. I don't even like to necessarily say I've been sober for a year now because I'm not like a recovering alcoholic. Respect to the people that are recovering alcoholics, but I didn't really have a problem. I could have quit any time, but I just like over time, like of doing carnivore diet, the way I feel, because it's one of those things like mental clarity is always number one, a carnivore diet. And a lot of people are just like, my brain's so clear mentally. Why would I do something to mess that up? Why would I put drugs or alcohol in my body? Why would I smoke weed or smoke anything to really to take away this mental clarity feeling? Like I can sleep at night. Like being able to sleep at night is such a game changer, especially when you're working a full-time job and going to the gym every day. Like honestly, like there's a lot of people working a full-time job and then working out afterwards. That's really taxing on their mind and body. Just because that's just like, especially when you're eating a bad diet and you're not getting sleep. Working a full-time job and then working out afterwards, that can turn into a long day. But for me, with the energy I have from carnivore diet combined with sleeping better, a full-time job and working out 7 days a week is not as taxing on my mind and body as it used to be. It really, before when I was doing, carnivore diet, not full bore, that was a little bit more taxing my body. Now working 7 days a week and then lifting for an hour and a half, 2 hours afterwards is really not as tough on my body. But yeah, we'll look up carnivore diet benefits. I'd say the only negative, I guess, is I really only want to eat steak now. Kind of like once you've got accustomed to something really good, you don't want to go back. It's like if you've gotten accustomed to staying in 5-star hotels, you probably don't want to start staying in motels. So that's kind of like me. Yeah, increased testosterone, heart health, weight loss, clearer mind. Talks about autoimmune symptoms. I assume that's implying that the autoimmune systems go away. Yeah, may promote. See, I don't understand. Like, there's always it's too bad a lot of the diets or the articles on carnivore diet are so pessimistic. Like, it's always like may produce weight loss or anecdotal evidence. Look, I mean, there's so many anecdotal cases of people losing 100, 200, 300 pounds. There's so many stories of that. Even if there's no studies that were like scientifically published, if you will. Of all this, there's so much. After a while, like all this anecdotal evidence has to mean something, right? There has to be something. There has to be at least some. There has to be at least something to this. It's like I always compare. It's like if they didn't understand exercise was healthy or good for you. Like if we didn't, for some reason, we didn't know that. But right now there'd be all these anecdotal evidence of people running, running each day, losing weight, getting healthier, having better numbers, having better numbers at the doctor. If we just heard all those anecdotals, wouldn't there be some truth to that? Yeah, low in added sugar. Yeah, that's the thing with carnivore diet. You're not getting any added sugar. High protein. Yep, high protein. Yep, muscle building, immune function are all the benefits. Yeah, that's the issue. There's no research conducted to evaluate the long-term effects of carnivore diet. So yeah, it's disappointing. There just isn't like a lot of long-term studies done. Like, you feel like at this point, like with how many, like there's a lot of people that have done carnivore now for 10 plus years, 7 plus years. I know that Sean Baker, he's been doing it for like 7.5 years at this point. He's one of the leading experts. Like you think about like people have been doing it this long and you're still just not going to come out with a controlled study. Like, I guess supposedly they were supposed to have one fairly soon, but I guess not. So yeah, you would love a controlled study. That would really be ideal to really keep pushing carnivore diet to people. But it seems like the leftist agenda, like if you're a true believer in the Matrix and the fact that there's high elites that want people controlled, then you really understand why there's not at least one of these studies being published for the benefits of carnivore diet, just because they want people to continue to be eating junk food. And like I say, junk food's $1 million industry. Like if Doritos were to go under, that's millions of jobs lost, millions of dollars lost. So yeah, a lot of people if people just boycotted food, that would just be such a huge game changer. I think, and not even just Doritos. Like if people just stopped eating sugared cereals, like sugared cereals should never be put in the body. I'm not even going to leave any leeway there, like saying maybe they should be eaten. Sugar cereals should never be eaten. No one should ever eat sugar cereals, not even a kid, not a dog, not a lizard. So if people just stopped eating sugared cereals, then that would make a huge difference. And a lot of people should just be supporting their local butcher shops. I have a couple by me. Some of these local butcher shops are just outstanding. Some of the meat's just such good quality. Some have grass-fed. Not all of them have grass-fed. The two around me don't have grass-fed. But even like meat with no hormones, no antibiotics, you really can tell it has just a good quality, just good taste. And so many cattlemen, ranchers are just taking a lot of heat right now for the red meat industry being demonized. What's interesting though is you hear like people that switched to carnivore diet were previously vegan, which is interesting, especially in the case of me. Like for years, I did primarily pretty close to a keto diet. Then I went to vegan and then carnivore diet. A lot of people kind of went this same route too. It's very interesting. It's almost like people like me, like a lot of people who eventually get to carnivore diet suspect some of their issues they've having, not only just mental, physical, autoimmune, acne, whatever, diabetes. A lot of people suspected initially that it was diet related. And then they kind of went on the path then they tried a little bit of keto, had results, and then went vegan. Sometimes it's vice versa. Some of them start off vegan, go to keto, then go to carnivore. That was kind of a little bit of Michaela Peterson's path. Hers was eventually she took out bread. She eventually got down to meat and greens. But it's kind of, a lot of people, it's kind of that similar path. Start taking out stuff, go to vegan, or vice versa. Start at vegan, then start taking out stuff, and eventually get down to carnivore diet. But yeah, I think that's one of the common things I've heard with people who eventually get to carnivore diet is they always suspected it was diet related. Like I was listening to this one guy who was having, wasn't seizures, was having some severe health problems. Like when he would experience like an emotion, happy, sad, he would feel really sick. It was just kind of weird. There's just like some mental disorders, some autoimmune, just a bunch of disorders people were having. But yeah, all of the people suspected it was diet related. So I think that's really interesting. A lot of people suspected initially it was diet related. Like for me, all the issues with anxiety, sleeping over the years, I kind of suspected it was diet related. But it was like with Jordan Peterson, though, when he said he was having sleeping problems, he thought it was just kind of how the way it was. Because a lot of times people see the world only through their point of view. And it's not always necessarily a bad thing. It's like if you're rich, you usually think everyone else is rich. Like in my case, I slept poorly, so I thought everyone else slept poorly. I kind of thought that I slept a little bit worse than other people just because it seemed like other people were more mentally clear. It seemed like a lot of other people could articulate their thoughts more. Like I remember I would have conversation. I feel like I couldn't articulate my thoughts as clearly as I wanted to. I couldn't think as clear. I didn't have the energy. At times would get really sleepy during the day. So I always suspected my sleeping issues were due to poor diet. But yeah, it's crazy how it's healing people's teeth. Their gum recession goes away. They can sleep better. So many benefits of carnivore diet. People that were in a wheelchair are able to walk again. You got to think, like, that's the thing I talk about why carnivore diet's so effective is like all these like acne, diabetes, all these issues people are having. Like it's crazy people don't think that that's like the body's way of signaling to them that what they're putting in their body they don't like. It's like really what diabetes is just like too much glucose going in the body. Like the body's just kind of saying that's it. That's enough glucose.